Jamunatira Vanachari Jamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Divine Grace, Srila Isimat Prabhupada Ki Jai.
Jai
Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. All glories to assembled devotees. All glories to assembled devotees. All glories to assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru. All glories to Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Namo Vishwabadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Pati Vikasas.
You can hold it where you like it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We are reading from Canto 3, Chapter 9. We're going to be reading from text 7 through 9. What we can do is we can chant this first verse 7, because that's a purport, and then 8 and 9 I'll chant. Okay. 379, yes. 397. We had 397, yes. Okay. Daivina te hatadiyaha bhavataha prasangat sharva ashubha upashamanat vimukha indriyaha ye kurvanti kama sukha lesha lavaya dinaha loba abhibhuta manashaha akushalani shashvat Daivina-te hata diyo bhavata prasangat Sharvashu bopashamanat vimukindriyaye Kurvanti kama sukha lesha lavaya dina Loba bibhuta manaso kushalani shashvat Daivina-te yata diyo bhavata prasangat Sharva Shubhopashamanat Vimukindriyaye.
सर्वाशुभोपशमनाद् विमुखेन्द्रियाये
Kurvanti Kama Sukha Lesha Lavayadina.
कुर्वन्ति कामसुकलेशलवाय दीना
Lobha Vibhuta Manaso Kushalani Shashvat.
लोभाभिभूतमनसो कुशलानि शश्वत्
Daivinate Yata Diyo Bhavata Prashangat.
दैवेन ते हतधियो भवतः प्रसङ्गात्
Sharva Shubhopashamanat Vimukindriyaye.
सर्वाशुभोपशमनाद् विमुखेन्द्रियाये
Kurvanti Kama Sukha Lesha Lavayadina.
कुर्वन्ति कामसुकलेशलवाय दीना
Lobha Vibhuta Manaso Kushalani Shashvat.
लोभाभिभूतमनसो कुशलानि शश्वत्
Please repeat.
दैवेन ते हतधियो भवतः प्रसङ्गात्
Vinate Hatadiyo Bhavata Prashangat.
सर्वाशुभोपशमनाद् विमुखेन्द्रियाये
Sarva Vizomashana Vimukajriyaye.
कुर्वन्ति कामशुकलेशलवाय दीना
Kurvanti Kama Sukha Lesha Lavayadina.
लोभाभिभूतमनसो कुशलानि शश्वत्
Lobha Vibhuta Manaso Kushalani Shashvat. Daivinate Hatadiyo Bhavata Prashangat. Sarva Shubhopashamanat Vimukindriyaye. Kurvanti Kama Sukha Lesha Lavayadina. Lobha Vibhuta Manaso Kushalani Shashvat.
Daivenate hatadiyo bhavatah prasangat.
Daivinate Hatatiyo Bhavata Prashangat.
Sarva shubhopashamanad vimukhendriyaye.
Sharva Shubhopashamanat Vikindriyaye.
Kurvanti kama sukhale shalavaya dina.
Kurvanti Kama Sukha Lesha Lavayadina.
Lobha bhibhuta manaso kushalani shashvat.
Lobha Vibhuta Manaso Kushalani Shashvat. Daivinate Hatadiyo Bhavata Prashangat. Shubhopashamanat Vikudindriyaye. Kurvanti Kama Sukha Lesha Lavayadina. Lobha Vibhuta Manaso Kushalani Shashvat. Mataji. Daivinate Hatadiyo Bhavata Prashangat. Sharva Shubhopashamanat Vikindriyaye. Kurvanti Kama Sukha Lesha Lavayadina. Lobha Vibhuta Manaso Kushalani Shashvat. Okay, word for word. Daivina, by fate of misfortune. Te, they. Hata diyaha, bereft of memory. Bhavataha, of you. Prashangat, from the topics. Sharva, all. Ashubha, inauspiciousness. Upashamanat, curbing down.
curbing down.
Vimukha,
Vimukha,
turned against.
turned against.
Indriya,
Indriyaha,
Indriyaha, senses. Yea,
Yea,
those.
those.
Kurvanti,
Kurvanti,
act.
act.
Kama,
Kama,
sense gratification.
sense gratification.
Sukha,
Sukha,
happiness.
happiness.
Lesha, brief. Lavaya, for a moment only. Dinaha,
Dinaha,
poor fellows.
poor fellows.
Loba abhibhuta,
Loba abhibhuta,
overwhelmed by greed.
overwhelmed by greed.
Manasaha,
Manasaha,
of one whose mind.
of one whose mind.
Akushalani,
Akushalani,
inauspicious activities.
inauspicious activities.
Shashvat,
Shashvat,
always. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Srila Prabhupada. Translation. O my Lord, persons who are bereft of the all-auspicious performance of chanting and hearing about your transcendental activities are certainly unfortunate and are also bereft of good sense. They engage in inauspicious activities, enjoying sense gratifications for a very little while. Purport. The next question is, why people are against such inauspicious activities as chanting and hearing the glories and pastimes of the Lord, which can bring total freedom from the cares and anxieties of material existence? The only answer to this question is that they are unfortunate because of supernatural control due to their offensive activities performed simply for the sake of sense gratification. The Lord's pure devotees, however, take compassion upon such unfortunate persons and, in a missionary spirit, try to persuade them into the line of devotional service. Only by the grace of pure devotees can such unfortunate men be elevated to the position of transcendental service. So I'll just chant 9. What's this? 8 and 9. Shutrida tubir imamuhur arjamanaha shitoshnavata varasher itarik tarakcha Kamagni nachuta rushacha sudurbarina sampashato mana urukrama siddhate me. Translation. O great actor, my lord, all these poor creatures are constantly perplexed by hunger, thirst, severe cold, secretion, and bile, attacked by coughing winter, blasting summer, rains, and many other disturbing elements, and overwhelmed by strong sex urges and indefatigable anger. I take pity on them, and I am very much aggrieved for them. Purport. A pure devotee of the Lord like Brahma and persons in the disciplic succession are always unhappy to see the perplexities of the conditioned souls, who are suffering the onslaughts of the threefold miseries which pertain to the body and mind, to the disturbances of material nature, and to many other such material disadvantages. Not knowing adequate measures for relieving such difficulties, suffering persons sometimes pose themselves as leaders of the people, and the unfortunate followers are put into further disadvantages under such so-called leadership. This is like a blind man's leading another blind man to fall into a ditch. Therefore, unless the devotees of the Lord take pity on them and teach them the right path, their lives are hopeless failures. The devotees of the Lord who voluntarily take the responsibility of raising the foolish materialistic sensual are as confidential to the Lord as Lord Brahma. It's the last one I'm supposed to read. Yadvat pritak tvam idan atmana indriyarta maya balam bhagavato jana isha pashyet tavanna samsmritir asho pratishankameta vyartapi dukkha nivaham vahati kriyarta. Translation. O my Lord, the material miseries are without factual existence for the soul. Yet as long as the conditioned soul sees the body as meant for sense enjoyment, he cannot get out of the entanglement of material miseries, being influenced by your external energy. Purport. The whole trouble of the living entity of material existence is that he has an independent conception of life. He is always dependent on the rules of the Supreme Lord, in both the conditioned and liberated states. But by the influence of the external energy, the conditioned soul thinks himself independent of the supremacy of the personality of Godhead. His constitutional position is to dove himself with the desire of the supreme will, but as long as he does not do so, he is sure to drag on in the shackles of material bondage. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita, Prajahati yada kaman sarvam parta manogatan. He has to give up all sorts of plans manufactured by mental concoction. The living entity has to dovetail himself with the supreme will. That will help him get out of the entanglement of material existence. Oh my God, Miranda Shagananda Salakaya Chaksho Lita Mina Tasmai Shri Gurve Namaha Shri Titanamano Bisam Snapitamina Buddha Swayam Upakata Mayam Dati Swapatantikam Vandiyam Shri Guru Shita Patagamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavam Shai Shri Rupam Sagatam Sahagavitam Tam Zivam Sadvatam Savadatam Patan Saitam Krishna Titana Deva Shri Radha Krishna Pada Sahagana Laita Shri Vishagamitam Shah Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasaya Buddha Shimate Bhativikasa Swamiti Namane Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasaya Buddha Shimate Bhativedanta Swamiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Bhajarane Nirvishesha Srinivadi Pashacha Dashatarane Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So these texts in Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 9, texts 7 and 9, these are explaining the misfortune of the living entities who fail to take up to the service of serving Krishna, the Krishna consciousness. Lord Brahma is feeling despondent seeing that there's so many living entities who have turned their face away from the service of Krishna. And in this chapter, Lord Brahma is praying to Krishna so he can perform his duty. But as he's praying for his duty, he's seeing that others have neglected their duty and are unfortunate, as this verse, text number 7 says. Ultimately, Lord Brahma is understanding what the necessity of the soul is. It's interesting because the necessity of the soul is to want to be dependent on Krishna. The soul needs to serve Krishna. And the wants and the needs of the soul are identical, while the wants and the needs of the body are not identical. For example, the body wants to have extravagant sense gratification. The body wants fame, adoration, all these things, but it doesn't need it. The body only needs what? Clothing, shelter, and what's food. But if you look in, I looked this up in the Veda base. If you type in need of soul and want of soul, same, because there's no duality on the spiritual platform. So the soul needs to serve Krishna. The soul needs a connection with Krishna. And actually, it's mentioned in the Transcendental Diary that probably was a conversation with him and his disciples. Probably saying that actually this necessity of the soul, realizing that the soul needs something higher, is a symptom of intelligence. Actually, a rock, for example, has no understanding of a necessity of needing something to take care of it. But those who are intelligent realize that they need Krishna, they need God to support them. That is a symptom of an advanced soul. Lord Brahma, he's an advanced soul. He's understanding he needs Krishna to help him perform his duty. So this feeling of need is actually very conducive for our Krishna consciousness. So when we feel the separation from Krishna, then that's when we can attain the highest level of surrender, because we realize we can't do anything without the mercy of Krishna. The nature of the soul is to be full of knowledge, bliss, and eternity. The body, being for reflection, is seeking these things. The body is also seeking knowledge. You see people are going to school, they're going to college, and people get some level of sense gratification from this. Oh, I have so much knowledge. But it's perverted reflection. Naturally, the soul is already full of knowledge, but being contaminated and not realizing what their true need is, they're seeking material education to facilitate that knowledge. Similarly, bliss. Me and Ali Krishna were talking about this during Ram Navami, that these drug addicts, they become so addicted to these drugs that Like, for example, heroin, they leave their families. They'll sell everything for it. Because it's some bliss they're getting, materially speaking, that they will do anything just to have that drug. And we were talking about that, similar like the gopis. The gopis gave up everything just for the service, even subjected themselves to infamy because they left their husbands. So the soul wants bliss, and they're seeking in the wrong places because it's not understanding the need. So ultimately, people who are intelligent are going to feel this need more attunedly than others. The more intelligent a person is, the more he's going to feel like he needs Krishna for every single thing he does. That's what this last verse was saying, that the sense of independence is actually the greatest. It's actually the greatest enemy of the conditioned soul. It's the reason why we're in this material world, feeling like we're independent from Krishna. And we can even, as practitioners of the Krishna consciousness movement, we can also feel like, oh, I'm doing this many books, I'm building this temple, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And the more you think like this, the more actually we're becoming dull. The more we feel like we're the doer, the more dull-headed we become, even while being in Krishna consciousness. So we have to remember, always constantly have. Lord Brahma he's a leader of our sampradaya, and he's teaching us how we should need Krishna to perform our duties. And in this first verse, verse 7, Lord Brahma is talking about how those who are bereft of chanting and hearing have no good sense. I'm gonna take over Jitta so that I'm not asking you to pull up different things. How do we do this? Okay, now I'm like, how do I connect? But yes, so Lord Brahma is helping us understand that we can see. For some reason, maybe put up the Wi-Fi or something. But Lord Brahma is helping us see that ultimately we have to be attached to the hearing and chanting of Krishna. This hearing of Krishna, actually, there's a verse that I want to pull up. For now we can just do that. In 177 of Srimad Bhagavatam. It's okay. We don't have to worry about it. Yeah, I'll use it. So in Srimad Bhagavatam 1.7, it's really interesting because Srimad Bhagavatam has a lot of the verses are very similar. So this verse is very similar to the verse we read today. So, was working? Okay. Yeah, I'll just use this phone. It's fine. Okay. So simply by giving oral reception to this Vedic literature. Oh, okay. Let's see. Okay, cool. Apologies. Okay. So 177. So similarly, I think who is saying this?
Could you blow it up?
Is that good?
Yeah.
Okay. Simply by giving oral reception to this Vedic literature, the feeling for devotional service to Lord Krishna, the Supreme Person of God, sprouts up at once and extinguishes the fire, lamentation, illusion, and fearfulness. So there are various senses of which the ears are most effective. So this hearing directly gets us in contact with Krishna. This hearing is the first stage in devotional service. Actually, the whole purpose of the Krishna consciousness movement is to bring those into our temples so they can hear about Krishna. Prabhupada says this, that in the purpose of Chantartamrita, that the whole purpose of the Krishna consciousness movement is to bring people to hear about Krishna and to take Krishna prasadam. Because it's by hearing about Krishna, the fire of lamentation, illusion, and fearfulness is gradually diminished. Why? Because hearing about Krishna and being in contact with Krishna is non-different. As long as we see duality in hearing about Krishna and seeing him, then we're still on the neophyte platform. Even Parameshwara was saying the first time you see Krishna is through your ears. And when we hear properly, then we can see properly. Ultimately, as devotees, aspiring devotees, we want to have a sense of trying to see things clearly. Which is Ukramantam Sitam Vapi, Bunjanam Va Agunanvitam, Vimura Nanu Pashanti Gyana Chakshushaha. So the Mudas, the Vimudas, Nanu Pashanti, they do not see how the material modes of nature are working. They're not understanding how we're changing from body to body. But because we are hearing from Krishna and we're reading Srimad Bhagavatam, we're able to see things clearly. We see by hearing. Even in mundane sense, people say, oh, I see when they're hearing something, and somebody saying, oh, I see. They're not really seeing it. It's like you say it's like a metaphor for understanding. When you understand something properly, you can see it properly. But for devotees, we have the vision of wanting to see things clearly, seeing that we're not independent of Krishna, seeing that we should not be bereft of trying to do loving service unto him. As Lord Brahma is saying in these prayers, those who are bereft of loving service to Krishna are completely unfortunate. And we can feel like we're unfortunate sometimes. We can feel like, oh, I've given up everything. I've given my friends, family. I'm chanting Hare Krishna. I'm not getting a taste. Why am I so unfortunate? Actually, you're the most fortunate soul. Lord Brahma is saying this because you have good sense and you're able to see things clearly. But ultimately, we cannot see unless we have the vision that the Guru bestows upon us. With Sadhu Guru Shastra, I was thinking about this earlier, like an analogy. The Vedas, you can say, is like a farm. And the Guru is like the farmer, the expert farmer. So the knowledge is there, but the expert farmer is able to cultivate the crops. He's able to protect it from unnecessary disturbances, and he's able to give it to his customers. Similarly, the Guru, the Vedas is vast. Even Krishna says that in the Bhagavad Gita, that we should actually transcend the three modes of material nature. We actually transcend the dualities, because the Vedas deals with material topics, and then when it comes to the Upanishads, that's when it goes to liberation. But the Guru is able to pick out the ripened fruit of that farm and give it to us through the narration of Srimad Bhagavatam. The expert farmer, so we can try to approach the Vedas without the Guru, but the problem is we're subjecting ourselves to fallacies and misunderstandings. Just like this word Atma. Atma is used in the Bhagavad Gita so many times and in different ways. But if you don't have somebody with transcendental vision who can see things clearly, then this word can be misrepresented. So we can't actually get knowledge unless the Guru bestows it to us, and by bringing service unto him. And one thing is, there's a verse actually in the 5th canto, because if you're not hearing about Krishna, then ultimately it's Shava Evahi Kevalam. But I looked up this word actually, Shava Evahi Kevalam, and it actually it talks about the useless endeavors of a devotee. And I was pretty shocked actually when I read this. This is Srimad Bhagavatam 5:19-14. It says materialist, see this last verse, right? Shama Eva Kevalam. A waste of time and energy. So materialists are generally very attached. Can everybody see this? Okay. Materialists are generally very attached to their present bodily comforts and to the bodily comforts they expect in the future. Therefore, they are always absorbed in thoughts of their wives, children, and wealth, and are afraid of giving up their bodies, which are full of stool and urine. Okay, this is what I'm talking about. If a person engaged in Krishna consciousness, however, is also afraid of giving up his body, what is the use of his having labored to study the Shastras? It was simply a waste of time. That's important, actually. How many of us are ready to give up our bodies right now? And in the I think in World War II, like you have like the kamikaze? Yeah, they were ready to give up their body for the country. They were a suicide on a mission, right? Shana's ready. And I was thinking about it when I first read that verse. I was like, am I really ready? If you were to die right now, would you be confident that Krishna is going to protect you? If not, then what is the use of studying the Shastras if you're not realizing that your body is temporary? Because ultimately, death is fearful. Death is fearful for everybody. Chandra was making this point in this class yesterday at Bayam. The devotee gets fearlessness. But as long as we're still attached to material comforts, then our study of Shastras becomes null and void. As long as we're attached to even the idea of being great in this material world, of having some time of name, fame, and adoration, our study of Shastra becomes null and void. Because at the time of death, instead of thinking about Krishna, we're going to be thinking about material attachments. So this is the difference between a Krishna conscious person and a materialist. Holiness Bhakti Swami Guru Maharaj said in his arrival address that even the worst day for a devotee is better than the best day as a materialist. And I was thinking about that a lot, because for a materialist, they labor so hard for some small accolade, and they're not really happy. But for a devotee, even when we're suffering, at least we're on the path of liberation, we're on the path to transcendental loving service. Even our worst days in Krishna consciousness is better than the karmis. Why? Because we have a method of getting out of the material tabernacle. This word tirtha can mean a lot of things. Actually, there's a series of lectures on this, but one is actually the meaning means like a crossing ground, a place to cross. So there's shallow water. There's like a river. There's an ocean. There's like a little path where people can walk across. This is a tirtha. So it's mentioned that Sukadev Goswami and those speaking Srimad Bhagavatam like Sukadev Goswami are like tirthas, because just by simply hearing from them, we can cross the ocean of material existence. And Lord Brahma is saying in this translation that there are people who are so unfortunate that even after understanding that you can cross the ocean of material existence just by hearing, they're so unfortunate due to their offensive activities. But it's our duty as devotees to go out and give them the knowledge. I was just reading that the Mayavadis of Varanasi, they were completely offensive. They were blaspheming Lord Chaitanya. They were saying, he's just chanting, he's a sentimentalist, he's chanting, he's not studying Shastra. Lord Chaitanya has completely smashed their philosophy. After them criticizing him, he showed compassion and mercy upon them and gave them the transcendental wisdom, the transcendental knowledge. He established Sambandha, their understanding of what the relationship is with Krishna. This is very important. We cannot actually make advancement in Krishna consciousness without first understanding this first aspect of Sambandha, knowing our relationship with Krishna, and then acting in a relationship, Abhideya. But there are people, they're so unfortunate because due to their offensive activities for the sake of sense gratification. But even though they're being offensive, we should take compassion upon them. A symptom of advanced soul in Krishna consciousness is we have compassion upon those who are bereft of Krishna consciousness, because we realize by seeing clearly that there's nothing in this world besides the transcendental loving service of the Lord. There's nothing in the world besides this. The goal of all progress is Krishna. Prabhupada writes that in the Tesham Sattata Yuktanam purport. The goal of all progress is Krishna. And the path of progress is traversed by the great souls. And when they traverse this path of progress, what do they leave behind? They leave behind the boat of knowledge for us to cross over. Even if we're the most sinful of all sinners, if we're situated in the boat of transcendental knowledge, when we walk the path that has been laid out, that's been traversed by the great souls, we can also cross, because they're tirthas. The great souls are tirthas. We should go to Mayapur, we should go to Vrindavan, we should go to the holy dhams. But higher than that is a walking tirtha of the sadhu. The sadhu, any place the sadhu is walking, he's turning into a tirtha. Any place he's walking, he's turning into a tirtha. Nonetheless, there are those, I think Jita Girish was saying when we were greeting Gumaraj, that some people were saying, you shouldn't cut in front of me, and you're supposed to be a sadhu, and this is not right, you should show some respect. Yeah, in the elevator. They were chastising Jita because he was making room for a sadhu. He was making room for a great soul. And because they didn't have the proper vision, they became offensive. So these are the type of people we're dealing with in Kali Yuga. Because they're bereft of good sense, because of their offensive nature, they're not able to recognize what a true holy person is. They think Sadguru or these other, I'm not going to name names, but they think all these other gurus are sadhus just because they have elaborate speeches and do some word jugglery. But then when somebody, even in ISKCON, when you're speaking straightforwardly, you're seen as offensive, even though you're saying what's in tune with Sadhu Guru Shastra. You cannot understand scripture without the guru. The guru is the manifestation. He's a walking manifestation of the scripture and of the holy person, of the sadhu. So we should have compassion, actually, and we should realize that in this material world, the devotees are the real heroes. We're the real heroes. There's an anecdote. The Guru Maharaj says that. My Guru Maharaj says that Vamsi Das Babaji, he showed this book to a businessman, and the businessman was like, "Oh, so what did he do? What did he do? He said, what did he do?" Guru Maharaj said, "Well, he was Krishna conscious," and he relates that he wasn't really satisfied with that answer. And I was just thinking about this, like, just trying to turn it a little more. He was a hero. Vamsi Das Babaji was a hero. Why was he a hero? In the Uddhava Gita, I've said this before, I'll say it many times, but in the Uddhava Gita, Krishna defines heroic as one who's able to subdue his lower self. This is what it means to be heroic. So when we're able to subdue our lower selves, we're able to see things clearly, and we're able to help others. Simply by his example, Vamsi Das Babaji, living a renounced life. He might not, just if you look at the examples of our great predecessors, we realize that they did not strive for these material facilities because they had a real treasure. The real treasure is love of God. And like I said, they traverse the path of righteousness, and they leave the means to do it for us. Guru Maharaj said in his class recently that those who are actually further away from Krishna, they have the most opportunities to come to him. There's so many great teachings and teachers in our line. All we have to do is just stick to the lotus feet of Srila Prabhupada. I mentioned this point of Sambandha, Abhideya, and Prayojana. So Bhagavad Gita mainly deals with Sambandha. In the middle chapters, it starts talking about Abhideya. But the Srimad Bhagavatam has a full understanding of all three. All the Vedas deal with these three things. Sambandha, Abhideya, and Prayojana. But if we don't see clearly, if we're not able to see clearly, then we'll just stay on the platform of Sambandha. We cannot act properly. And if you don't act properly, then what is the use of studying your Shastras? What is the use of studying Shastras if you're not able to act properly? What is the use of studying Shastras if you're not willing to give it to others? If you're not having compassion upon others? You're actually committing violence, actually, by not giving it to others. So, real heroism is to say no to Maya. This is real heroism. And devotees, they have this Samadarshana. They have this equal vision, Samadarshana, that ultimately the Uttamadhikari, he's seeing everybody as a devotee, and he's not seeing him as a devotee. But for Madhyamadhikari, for a preacher, he's seeing that those who are bereft of Krishna consciousness are suffering. And he's seeing that it is his duty to give it to them. It is his duty to protect Dharma. There's an anecdote that Prabhupada was speaking on this verse in the Srimad Bhagavatam with the Yamadutas and the Vishnu Dutas. And he made this point, Hari Prabhu was making this point that the Yamadutas, you can compare them to like the Western Americans, or Americans, you compare them to the Yamadutas because the Yamadutas are like uncultured. They were following the teachings of their teacher, their spiritual master Yamaraj, but they're uncultured. They're kind of funny looking, But because they followed the order of their guru and their teacher, even though they might have not understood the full understanding of what real Dharma is, they were actually faultless. Prabhupada makes this point. Because they were simply following the order of Yamaraj. And us as devotees, we can, me for myself, I'm very uncultured, I'm very uncivilized, so I see myself as a Yamaduta. But Prabhupada is making this point that they had this Shushruma. They had, Shushruma, right. Their greatest quality was that they were only simply following the orders of the Guru, Yamaraj. And that's actually their compassion. Ajamil was very sinful. The Yamadutas is coming and taking Ajamil to Yamaraj was not an act of violence. It's an act of compassion to rectify him. But then we get further into the Leela is really because he was chanting Narayana, then he was actually purified of all his sins. But nevertheless, the point is that when we stick to the orders of our guru, even if we make a mistake, we are faultless. When we stick to the order of our guru, when we stick to the order of our spiritual master, even if we make a mistake, even when we slip or fall, by sticking to the order of our spiritual master, we get all full blessings and empowerment. You know, people are also always ask for mercy. God, can you please bless me? Can you please bless me? The blessings are in the instructions, but it's up to us to carry out those instructions. These is the real full manifestation of mercy, is following the instructions of the guru. And Prabhupada was saying that if we neglect preaching of Krishna consciousness, the whole movement becomes a failure. And I remember this when I was in D.C. It's something called Capital Kirtan. Does anybody know about this? Anyways, pretty much all the youth of ISKCON come into D.C. It was maybe like, I don't know, 100. It was packed, 100, 200 people there in the temple room. They performed Kirtan for like 3 days. So the first day I went, I was like, okay, this is nice. Okay, we're chanting in the temple. That's fine. And then Saturday, every Saturday in downtown Silver Springs, the devotees in DC, they go out and they chant on the street. And Harinam, right. So I was like, okay, well, like, it was going to be lively, you know. We're going to have like 100 people in the Harinam. Because I went every Saturday. So I was the only person there from that Capital Kirtan that actually went to the Harinam. And I was thinking about that. It's like, okay, you're performing Kirtan in the temple, but you missed the whole point of the movement. Sankirtan the Yuga Dharma is Sankirtan. You're performing Kirtan in the temple, but you're actually committing violence because you're not going out and sharing it to others. You've neglected the order of your spiritual master. And because we were neglecting the order of the spiritual master, you're seeing all these discrepancies in the movement because we're not following the orders. We're not preaching. We're not establishing farm communities. So we have to hang tight onto the lotus feet of our guru. We have to hang tight up on the orders of their spiritual master. And essentially in text number 8, Lord Brahmaj is pretty much talking about the afflictions of material nature. By being in the material world, what type of distresses we have to endure. And ultimately we're enduring these distresses because our senses are attached to sense objects. Which is where Shrotam Chakshu Sparshanam Cha Rasanam Granam Evacha Adishtaya Manaschayam Vishayan Nupasevate. So we all in the material world, we all have a particular set of senses, and all our senses have attraction to certain sense objects. For example, me, growing up, I used to like watching basketball. Other people in other regions of the world, they might like watching cricket. This is just because of their body, they have a certain object of sense gratification that pleases them. But ultimately, the objects, the thing that we're striving for the most is causing us the most suffering. So Shrotram, so hearing, it says that the deer is captured by hearing. The fish is captured by his tongue. The elephant is captured by touch. The moth is captured by his sight, and there's one more. Yeah, smell. What's the bee? Yeah, the honeybee. So our senses are capturing us, especially different living entities are being captured by the objects of their senses. And because of the object of their senses, they're being perplexed by the modes of material nature. So ultimately, as a human beings, we have a even greater danger because all our senses are able to captivate us. Actually, it's said in the 11th canto that the form of a woman is very dangerous for a man. By seeing the opposite sex, you become bewildered. By hearing the opposite sex sing, you become bewildered. By smelling a fragrance, you become bewildered. Even by the tingling of the ankle bells, by hearing that, you could become bewildered. But if we're so foolish to think we've conquered the object of the senses, we will fall victim to them. We should never be so foolish to think we have become Paramahamsas. Oh yeah, I can associate with the opposite sex. I can do this. I can do that. And you are prone to fall down. And I was talking about the necessities early in my class that The soul needs to serve Krishna. The soul needs a relationship with Krishna. Prabhupada also writes that a man needs a woman needs a man. But this is only for conditioned souls, actually. When Prabhupada is saying that he's speaking for those who are conditioned by their senses, then yes, a man would need a woman. But those who have conquered their senses, there's no need for it. What need is it for it? If you realize the goal of life, if you realize the goal of life is not to have a family, if you realize the goal of life is not to work a job, if you realize the goal of life is not to have name, fame, adoration, what is the use of it? But for those like myself who are less intelligent, they would need these things so they can suffer. Ultimately. Well, yeah, it's true. The Varnashram system is meant for those to come up to a level of Krishna consciousness, but for those who are less intelligent, they have to go through the what's the right word for it? Yeah, exactly. They have to go through the ringer. They have to get purified of these desires. They have to get purified of these desires. But the point is, once we realize our needs, and once we realize what we really need, and we work towards that, and we cultivate a mood of separation from Krishna, it's not artificial. This is mood of separation. It comes with getting a higher taste. Once you get a higher taste, which is from just for Narthan, then when you experience a lower taste, you want to give it up immediately. And the quickest means of getting this higher taste is by going out in Sankirtan or supporting and facilitating the Sankirtan movement. The reason why so many devotees leave the movement is because they're not getting any taste in Krishna consciousness. But like I said, this taste comes from Abhideya. Once we have once we realize somebody, the thing is, everything that Krishna teaches us it's a gradual process. We can't just jump up to prema. Oh, I love Krishna, I love God. No, we love our senses, we love being in Maya. We have no love for Krishna, actually. What love do we have for Krishna? We've been in this material world for 1,000 years. What love do we have for Krishna? We have no love for Krishna, actually. We love our senses. We love our mind. Our mind's been carrying us from body to body, and we're loving our material desires more than we love Krishna. But the goal of the Krishna consciousness movement is to teach people how to be a human being. Prabhupada says we're teaching people at least come to the level of being a human. This degraded demonic civilization is teaching people more and more. Me, Ali, Krishna are talking about this, that for those who want to, for example, say somebody wants to get a sex change, people will support you. Oh, Jai, Haribo, you're getting a sex change. This is good. You're standing up for the community, all this other nonsense. But say, shave your head and want to be a monk. How many people will support you then? Society is so degraded and so demonic that when we're trying to get out of Maya's clutches, then we become ostracized and we start having doubts in ourselves. But when we see things clearly, when we're seeing that the goals of the materialist and the goals of a devotee are different, that's one thing. The goal of a devotee and the goal of a materialist should not be the same. Because actually, a materialist can build a nice temple too, actually. Just because you build a nice temple doesn't necessarily mean you're a devotee. But the goal of the temple, that's the real essence. Prabhupada said a devotee and materialist can do the same activities, but because the consciousness is different, then the result is different. So when we were trying to build a temple or do whatever type of activities creates a consciousness, we're doing it for the goal of bringing others so we can hear Krishna Katha and also take Krishna Prasadam. This is the goal of Krishna consciousness movement. But if we neglect our duty, then we become no better. Even Lord Rama, how much suffering did he have to go through? He's formed the pastime. He is Krishna. But if any one of us was in that situation, could we really go through what he did? He gave up a whole kingdom. His wife got kidnapped. He was banished for so many years. How much suffering? But one thing about his pastime is he never gave up his duty, and he never neglected the service of Krishna. So even when reversals come in our lives, we should never neglect the service of Krishna. We should never neglect our duty. Because when we do so, what happens is there's so many cheating. Probably making this point in one of these purports that there's cheating religious leaders, and actually, I'm gonna go to that. The light of the Bhagavata. Prabhupada makes this point in the light of the Bhagavata as far as these glowworms. And these glowworms can be attributed to these cheating religious leaders. So I don't know if you can see this properly. But yeah, I really like this. This is really beautiful. The evening in the rainy season is dark all around. There is no sight of the twinkling stars on the horizon or the pleasing moon. They are covered by clouds, and the insignificant glowworms become prominent in the absence of the luminaries in the open sky. And in the purport, I guess you said purport. Prabhupada says, in Kali Yuga, there's a dearth of proper guidance. One may take guidance in the evening from the stars and moon, but in the rainy season, the light of guidance comes from insignificant worms. The real light in life is the Vedic knowledge. Bhagavad Gita affirms that the purpose of the Veda is to know the all-powerful personality Godhead. But in this age of quarrel, there are quarrels even on the point of existence of God. In the goddess civilization of the age of quarrel, there are countless religious societies, them trying to banish God from religion. Glowworms want to be prominent in the absence of the sun and stars, and all these small groups following various religious conceptions are like glowworms trying to be prominent before the eyes of the ignorant mass of people. So, in this purport that I read today, Prabhupada makes this point, that because Prabhupada says not knowing adequate measures for relieving difficulties, people become subjected to they become unfortunate followers. So there's so many cheating people in this age of Kali, and there's so many glowworms. There's so many people that because the light of the Srimad Bhagavatam is not being presented to the masses of the people, these glowworms are starting to take over. But once the light of the Bhagavatam and the Bhagavata, the pure devotees shine through, then people will, when Prabhupada was on the planet, so many people were joining the movement because Prabhupada was the moon amongst all the small stars and glowworms. Because he stayed true to the order of a spiritual master. And because of that, he was able to shine with the bliss of Krishna consciousness. But as long as we don't follow the orders of a spiritual master, then these glowworms are going to take over, and now people are they're being persuaded by so many different religious systems. Because the thing is, actually, it's not really too hard to understand matter and spirit. Even demons understand this. It's in the 7th canto, Hiranyakashipu. Anybody who's read that, actually, he gave some really profound prayers. I can actually read some of those. And he's a demon. But even demons can have an understanding of matter and spirit, but where they fall short is they don't understand who the controller of both. So there's a couple of verses. He's saying the living entities join together in family, and later, as a result, by their own actions, they are led apart to the destinations. The spirits. This is a demon talking. The spirit soul living entity has no death, for he's eternal and inexhaustible. Being freed from material contamination, he can go anywhere in the material or spiritual worlds. He's fully aware and completely different from the material body, but because of being misled by use of his slight independence, he is obliged to accept subtle and gross bodies created by material energy, and thus subjected to so-called material happiness and distress. Therefore, no one should lament the passing of the spirit soul from the body. It's interesting. The point that Hiranyakashipu is making is the same point that Lord Brahma is making. Lord Brahma is literally saying the same thing, that out of a sense of independence, thinking we're the body, we're suffering. Hiranyakashipu is saying the same thing. So understanding that we're not the body, even for a demon can understand that. But because we are, and that's why they become prominent. These demons are becoming prominent because they're introducing this knowledge that we're not the body. So-called religious leaders are introducing this. But because we understand the controller of both, we become superior, and the philosophy trumps all other glowworms. So when we're studying the Shastra, when we're studying the scripture, we should not interpret it. What that means is we should cite it, not interpret it. So the Mayavadis, what they'll do is they'll take bits and pieces of the Vedas, and they'll use it to support their own misguided ideology. They're interpreting the Shastra. But for us, we should cite it. We should stand firm on the principle that we're not the body, spirit, soul, we're the point to serve Krishna, and we should cite the Shastra to support what we're saying. But the minute we start interpreting Sastra, we become operatis. We become offenders. And so many people are trying to interpret the Sastra. We don't need to interpret the Sastra. We have so many great acharyas who've done that for us already. They've churned the nectar for us. All we have to do, actually, to be a preacher in Christian consciousness is easy. All we have to do is repeat what our predecessors have said. Once we start to concoct our own ideas, then we start to deviate from the path of pure devotional service. But like I was saying earlier, the path of the greats, the path of progress is already traversed by the great souls. All we have to do is get on the boat of knowledge. That's all we have to do. Get on the boat of knowledge, and it starts by understanding who you are and acting in that relationship. Okay, so it's 8:40. I'll stop my class here, and I'll open up for any corrections, comments, questions, anything like that.
In the Krishna book, Srila Prabhupada writes like that in regards to the boat that's left behind.
Yeah.
It's not that like for the pure devotees, the ocean shrinks, and they cross over, and then the boat's left for us to take over.
Yeah.
It's not that. Huh?
I went downstairs, I think.
Oh.
What did he say? What was the explanation?
Oh no, he talked about that way before too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. That I said Prabhupada explains it like that. That the boat is left behind.
Yeah, I think that's in
for
the
us to-
Bhagavatam. That's in the 10th canto of
Yeah.
Bhagavatam as well.
It shrinks to the size of a calf's hoof.
Yeah.
Right.
You said something in the middle of there that those who are furthest away from Krishna have the most opportunity to come to him.
Yes.
Could you elaborate on that?
Yeah, so what His Holiness Bhaktivedanta Swami was saying when he said that was that in our line there's so many different teachings, and those who are advanced devotees, they have compassion upon the fallen souls. And out of their compassion, they're writing so many different scriptures and literatures for the deliverance of the fallen souls. They're writing these literatures to bring people up to a higher standard. So even, especially in the age of Kali, those who are most fallen are more eligible for Lord Chaitanya's mercy. So what I meant by that is, the more fallen you are, the more, once you try to turn your face to Krishna, you realize all the opportunities there are to come to him. That's kind of what the understanding is, that, of course, if you don't want to come to Krishna, then you'll never come to Krishna. Unless, well, you can if you have the mercy of a pure devotee. But the point is that even if you're super degraded, the minute you try to turn you can be super far away from Krishna, but once you turn your face towards him, you realize there's so much knowledge and opportunities for you to come in contact so you can come closer to him. That's kind of how he was explaining it. Maharaj was explaining it.
It's directly from the Chaitanya Charitamrita verse. Dinere adik doya kore.
What verse is that? I can bring it up.
Dinere adik doya. Let me see.
Yeah, he was quoting Oitamovita. He quoted in one of his classes in the Leicester camp. I don't remember what. I think it was a Madhya Leela.
That's what he quoted last night.
Dinere adik doya. I have to find this out.
Yeah, but the point is, though, that the great teachers are showing their compassion by their teachings and their writings and whatever knowledge they're leaving behind, and they do it so we can take advantage of them. Like Prabhupada, for example, he spent hours and hours writing these books, and now these books are going everywhere. And just by reading one book, somebody can become Krishna. Prabhupada says any one of his books can make somebody purely Krishna conscious. All they have to do is just open one page. One word can change their life. So is that good, or anybody? Yeah.
This is explained in Antya 467. Maybe
This
it
one?
was 460. Yeah, next one.
Oh, I see. Dinere
adik doya kore Bhagavan, Kulin Pandit Dhanira Bhada Abhiman. So the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna is always favorable to the humble and meek, but the aristocrats, learned scholars, and wealthy are always proud of their positions. So the point is, Dina is also translated as fallen, several places. So that Krishna is favorable to those who are fallen,
I see.
but not those who are proud. The point is that if you're fallen and you're proud, then you're not qualified for the mercy. But you're fallen, but you're not proud, then you qualify. How much? In fact, yeah, the fact that you're fallen, you qualify. This is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy.
Yeah, and it's interesting though because Prabhupada also makes the point that in Kali Yuga, even a pauper is proud of his penny. So even though we have nothing, we're still puffed up. Those who have a lot are puffed up. Those who have nothing are still puffed up. But it seems like, from my understanding, it seems like humility comes with wisdom. Actually, the more knowledge you have, but then it's interesting because it says the learned, scholars, and the wealthy. But you can't have humility absent of knowledge. Because this is, for example, like you have Gandhi or whatever religious leader. It might seem like they're humble, but then now they're literally like promoting cow killing. They're so humble, they're so meek, but now they're promoting cow killing. They're promoting like all these different weird ideas. So real humility comes from understanding like your relationship with Krishna. But yeah, that's a good point though. Yeah, but yes.
The other thing was about the Yamadutas. So I understand like they're doing their duty to like take him, but then you're saying that it's like their compassion upon him, and so that he can become, I guess, rectified and like rehabilitated or whatever.
Yeah.
But then like, why is it that we don't, like, I must have gone to hell so many times, but I'm still not like fixing my behavior. You know what I mean? Like I still have like demoniac mentality. So like you would think, why do I not kind of remember some of that, or like I'm able to like, oh, I shouldn't do this because I'll have to suffer in this way like I did before? Why is that?
Yeah, so actually, with 2 points. The first thing is the Yamadutas they're devotees. They might be funny looking, they might be uncultured. That was the point I was making, but they are devotees, and the whole point is to, even though we don't remember, we also have some scars. So it is a point that like there's some people who are like they're afraid of snakes. Why? Because it says in hell that you get thrown and snakes are attacking you, or like spiders or something like that. So Prabhupada does make a point that after suffering for countless of lifetimes, the conditioned soul finally becomes awakened to the knowledge of Krishna and wants to surrender unto him. So even though you might not remember, the samskara is still there that you've been suffering. Even though you don't remember exactly the suffering, and not only that, I think it's a nectar of instruction. Actually, it says that in the Bhagavad Gita, that everybody is going to come to eventually, we're all in this material world to rectify our past misdeeds, and eventually we will come to Krishna. Whether we remember what we did in our past, the goal is for us to come to Krishna. That's the material world is designed for us to try to exploit it, become frustrated, and to eventually come to Krishna. The goal of all progress is to come to Krishna. Then you have Mayavadis, though, who are cast perpetually into hellish conditions. Unless you're not completely envious, then like we all eventually are. From my understanding, eventually we all are meant to come to Krishna eventually. It might take one lifetime, it might take millions of lifetimes, but the goal is for us to eventually come to him, whether we remember our past suffering or not.
Specifically, that question, like, of why is it that, like, we're sent to hell, but we don't remember our suffering, or we're not learning from it? That's kind of asked in regards to reincarnation. That's okay. It's a level of you get punished in hell, but then like it's seen that most people don't really like surrender to God either, because they're given multiple chances. The understanding of that is that the enjoying mentality takes over. So like, even it's mentioned in the Bhagavatam, or in that we understand that even while suffering in hell, there's enjoying mentality there.
Yeah.
Then that little tiny bit of time when you're not suffering, you consider that to be enjoyment. Or even you can understand, even in this world, that sometimes somebody will smoke cigarettes and they'll start coughing and they'll have so many like issues, but they still won't stop smoking cigarettes. Why? Because the enjoying mentality takes over, and it like completely just captures that person, and they have no, as Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, you have no control. You're completely just like forced into that situation. So that's the situation with the living entities, that we are put through different trials and tribulations. But even amongst in the body of a hog and a dog, you're still trying to enjoy.
Yeah, it's true.
And so Christians are not able to understand. Actually, Christians make this point, or other religions may make this point in regards to reincarnation. They're not able to understand that the enjoying mentality is the reason that we in this material world. They don't think that's the case. They think that, well, we're meant to enjoy. And so what's the problem? But it's just we're meant to enjoy just with just regarding Jesus as our Savior, and then you can enjoy. And then He'll save you, that's no problem. So in regards to why we can't why we can't remember our suffering, is that because of our enjoying mentality. And as soon as we stop having that enjoying mentality, then we realize how we're suffering even right now. We don't even realize how we're suffering right now.
Right.
So it's that's kind of the way that
Yeah, and the thing is, this enjoying mentality is meant to get curbed eventually, though. Like, the whole goal is to curb this enjoying mentality, because if Krishna didn't give us an opportunity to come to Him, then how merciful is Krishna? But Krishna's the most merciful. He's giving us opportunities, and that's the thing. It's like devotees have existed since time immemorial, Maybe not in all parts of the world or whatever, but devotees have existed, and Krishna will give you an opportunity to you to. The thing is, once you want to take your life, human life, seriously, then Krishna will make facilities for you to do so. That's another thing. So one thing is, if you did remember all the stuff you did in your past life, how much misery would you, you wouldn't even imagine, oh my gosh, remembering all the hells you've been through. You could probably even be able to function right now if you had all that. There's people even now, after getting shot or something, it takes them the whole life to get over this one instance. So imagine remembering every single thing you've done in your past. You wouldn't even be able to function. So it's actually Krishna's mercy that we don't remember. But the samskara is there, though. We do carry our samskaras from lifetime to lifetime. What's that verse? Yeah, what's that verse? Man.
Yeah, this Smaran Antakali. I'm remembering the other Antakali.
Hold on.
No, that's not it.
I know. It's 15.
Anyways, I had a
No. I'll find it.
No. This is like
it's right here. Yeah. This is it. Sharinam Yadavabnuti Yakchab Yukramati Sharagrit Vatani Samati Vayurgana Nivashayat. So yeah, out of millions of lives, the living entity in the material carries these different conceptions of life from one body to another, as the air carries aromas, as he takes one kind of body and again takes another. So you carry different conceptions, even though you might remember, but your conception, like Chandan was saying, of enjoying is still being carried out. And then the next verse is saying that enjoyment mentality is being carried out. So if you have the mentality to enjoy a certain way, then you'll get a body to enjoy that desire. You'll get a body to facilitate that desire to enjoy. The living entity does take another girl's body, attains a certain type of ear, tends to touch, which are grouped upon the mind. So the mind is carrying you from one body to another, and with your mind, you're taking on these different senses, and with these different senses, because of your desire, you're getting certain types of senses so you can enjoy the desire of trying to be separate from Krishna. But then you will get frustrated. You will eventually, I've read this, you will get frustrated eventually. Unless you're completely offensive, like in the Mayavadis, and you'll just be cast into hell perpetually. But for those who are not outright offensive, then eventually they will wake up. So
this point about the Yamadutas being devotees. You have a reference for this?
Yeah. Let's see. Hold on. It's in Transcendental Diary. Because Prabhupada was making the point that, why is it not coming up?
Transcendental Diary is not online.
It's not on. Okay.
I don't remember seeing it.
Okay, no. It's not, but the walk, it's a conversation that was in, The point is that Prabhupada was making the point that.
You have Veda Base, you can search on the app.
Let's see. I think I.
What are you searching?
Oh, here we go. Okay. I think it's right. It's a morning walk.
Prabhupada calls them agents of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in many places in like throughout his books.
Yeah, I wanna. It's a certain thing that I was.
Saying, it's different.
Anyways, I'll find it. But the point was that because they were following the order of their master Yamaraj, then they were okay. I think it's right here.
They didn't understand where the orders were coming from in that pastime. That's
Specifically to call them devotees.
They hear from the other master dharmas, but in dharma that made faith and English. That is the beginning. This is dharma contributions like chemicals. So there's taste. What is the taste? We are servant of God. Okay, maybe I'm not. Anyways, I think my understanding was that the Yamadutas were servants. They're servants of Yamaraj, so they're devotees of Yamaraj. Whether they're devotees of Krishna, I guess that's something that can be yeah.
Yeah, that's what I want to clarify, because you can be under a devotee, but that doesn't mean you're a devotee.
Right.
I mean, you get benefit for serving a devotee.
Right.
But whether the Yamadutas are simply because of that they're classified as devotees or not was kind of like,
I don't know if they're. I haven't seen a reference saying they're non-devotees either though. So like
but they're always referred to. For instance, one of the most referred things you'll see with the Yamadutas is Yamaraj's instruction to them to not approach devotees, which is an unusual instruction for someone who's already a devotee. So there's also the fact that Yamaraj takes the most sinful, envious, like entities and makes them the Yamadutas, and the Yamadutas are said to be in the position that they are because they like to torture others.
Yeah, but that's a good point.
And so, if you look at their other qualities, and the fact that they also lack any understanding of the Supreme Lord, apart from whatever they've just heard from Yamaraj, which is specifically in regards to their duty. It's just specifically in regards to their function. They've heard just enough to perform their function and perform it under. So they get benefit that, by serving Yamaraj, they attain, especially they get relieved from this sinful position of being a Yamaduta. But I don't know if we could call them devotees as such.
I wouldn't. That's a good point, because they are beastly and they are taking pleasure in causing suffering.
It's not just their form; they have a lot of
right.
Qualities that are very antithetical to devotional service.
Well,
it's not that it's different to a devotee, and I can appreciate the humility when you compared yourself to Yamadutas, but there's a difference that the Yamadutas aren't necessarily trying to suppress or overcome such things, versus the devotee recognizes this and is overcoming that and compares himself to that fallen position. That's okay, but Yamadutas is not doing that. They are not actively engaging in Krishna consciousness to overcome their lower nature.
Well, then it's also like the Rudras, for example. They also
There's so many.
It's like descriptions of so I guess they wouldn't be considered devotees either. So are they non-devotees?
Yeah.
They're non-devotees.
They're not devotees. I mean, they're not Vaishnavas. That's.
I see.
You go see it like you may have workers, like we're building a temple, and you may hire people to build.
Right.
I see. Yeah.
They're working under you, but doesn't mean
Yeah,
they're
see.
like meat eaters and like women hunters and all of these.
I see. So they're devotees. Sorry, they're devotees of Yamaraj.
Because one description of a Vaishnava is anybody who accepts Krishna as Supreme Lord is a definition of a Vaishnava. But still, when we say devotees, we generally don't refer to, or there's a statement of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, anybody who's chanted the name of Krishna once is a Vaishnava. How many people are chant? How many people we make on the
Yes.
street chant the name of Krishna? But generally, when we say Vaishnavas and we say devotees, it's a different connotation.
But when Yamaraj tells the Yamadutas about Krishna, I don't think they protested. I think they did accept that.
No, they say there directly. They said Vedo Narayana Sakshat.
Right. So that they do accept that Krishna is the Supreme
No,
Lord.
but like I said, even one person chants the holy name of Krishna once is a Vaishnava, according to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So, but still,
I guess
there's one question online from Mataji.
Yes, 9 o'clock.
Yeah, this is 9. What's the question?
How do we not become resentful to performing our duties while simultaneously cultivating a mood of detachment? That's a big one.
yeah, that's a big question. But what was say it one more time?
How do we not become resentful to performing our duties while simultaneously cultivating a mood of detachment?
Well, if you're resentful for performing your duty, then you're not doing your duty. You're not understanding the purpose of your duty. Like I kind of made that point in my class that when we're performing Krishna consciousness, we should know what we're doing. We're not doing our duty just for the sake of our sense gratification. We're doing it ultimately to please Krishna. So if we're resentful performing our duty, then we're not doing it for the purpose of pleasing Krishna. We're doing it to please ourselves or to get adoration from others. So when we start becoming resentful, that means our mentality is not correct. Our mentality should be adjusted. And as far as being detached from, what was it, the second part? Yeah, the mood of detachment just comes by being attached to Krishna and being attached to his devotees. But it's all a mentality thing. It's like if your mentality is not proper, if your mentality is not proper, then you're gonna have resentment. And if your mentality is not proper, then you're not gonna be detached from material activities. Okay, so it's all about mentality. Okay. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.